Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Today we examine Project Hail Mary, the 2026 science fiction adventure directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, adapted by Drew Goddard from Andy Weir's 2021 novel. It's important to understand that we are dealing with a work at the intersection of hard science tropes and large format cinema craft, which is a rather delightful collision.
I guess we can start by thinking about the simplest description. It's basically a space survival story about a lone astronaut who finds an unexpected friend. Right.
Precisely. In lay terms, a last-ditch mission to solve a cosmic crisis begets an unlikely friendship. In slightly more technical terms, it is a film adaptation foregrounding problem-solving under constraints, featuring cross-species cooperation, emergent translation, and iterative scientific reasoning, all wrapped in a production designed for premium large-format exhibition.
And the title signals a low probability attempt. The Hail Mary pass idea.
Moving forward, why it matters now. We observe a cultural appetite for non-franchise, high-concept science fiction, when anchored by credible craft and an A-list lead. The film dramatizes collaborative innovation against existential risk, which you see mirrors contemporary scientific and policy challenges. Historically, cinema often dilutes hard science for pace. Here the team chases verisimilitude while retaining momentum, a non-trivial optimization problem. Let's start with the history. In March 2020, MGM acquired rights to Weir's then upcoming novel for approximately $3 million, with Ryan Gosling attached to star and produce. In May 2020, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller joined to direct and produce. In June 2020, Drew Goddard was engaged to write the screenplay, his track record with The Martian indicating tonal continuity. Following Amazon's acquisition of MGM in 2022, Amazon MGM Studios positioned the feature for a 2026 window, later announced in April 2024.
Moving on. The production side. Can we maybe now look at filming and the cast?
Indeed. Principal photography began June 2024 in the United Kingdom, including Shepperton Studios, with location work at South Parade Pier in Portsmouth and the Mullard Radio Astronomy Observatory in Cambridge. Principal photography wrapped October 2024. The cast is led by Ryan Gosling as Dr. Ryland Grace, with Sandra Hüller, James Ortiz, Lionel Boyce, Ken Lung, Milana Weintraub, Priya Kansara, Liz Kingsman, Mia Soteriou, and Orion Lee. Greg Fraser served as cinematographer, Joel Negrone, editor. Daniel Pemberton composed the score, notable as the first Lord and Miller directed film not scored by Mark Mothersbaugh. Technically, the production is instructive, shot for IMAX on large sensor Arri Alexa 65 cameras, with anamorphic lenses rotated 90 degrees to exploit sensor height for IMAX 1.43:1, while maintaining a unified capture pipeline that could later crop for 1.85:1 or 2:1 aspect ratios alternate. Present-day sequences in taller formats, including IMAX 1.43:1 and flashbacks in 2.39:1 anamorphic, giving viewers a clear visual grammar for temporal orientation. And, as Christopher Miller stated, sets were built and shot practically, no green screen backings. Digital VFX remains substantial, delivered by Framestore, ILM, Sony Pictures Imageworks, BUF, and Wiley Co., supervised by Paul Lambert and Mag Sarnowska.
I think that explains why it looks, tactile. Also, the puppetry for the alien, Rocky. That seems unusual now.
Yes. Rocky is a five-legged being from Forti Eridani who communicates via musical echolocation. On set, he was realized with advanced puppetry, performed by a team nicknamed the Rocketeers, led by James Ortiz, with additional vocal contributions by Ray Porter and Meryl Streep. A surprising detail that arguably deepens timbre and character specificity. Lord credited the synergy of practical and digital methods for the creature's credibility. Further, the production executed a digital-to-film-to-digital process to introduce analog grain and color warmth, mitigating the sterility of high-resolution space imagery. Distribution and reception. The first trailer landed June 2025, achieving 400 million global views in its first week, reportedly a record for an original movie. Domestically released by Amazon MGM Studios and internationally by Sony Pictures Releasing International in March 2026, including select IMAX 1.431 engagements. The world premiere was London in March 2026. Audiences graded the film an A via CinemaScore. Incidentally, the trailer's music supervision by Vanessa George Perry and Tyler Torreson received recognition at the Guild of Music Supervisors Awards in February 2026. Tie-ins include a LEGO Icons Hail Mary spacecraft set released March 2026. The official score album, 38 tracks by Pemberton, released digitally March 2026, with needle drops such as Harry Styles' Sign of the Times and the Beatles' Two of Us integrated in the feature.
Maybe before the big questions, can we outline the story beats that matter for our discussion?
Briefly. Dr. Ryland Grace awakens alone with amnesia aboard the interstellar craft Hail Mary, the apparent sole survivor. Earth's sun is dimming due to astrophage, a microorganism breeding on Venus and feeding along a so-called Petrova line, threatening severe global cooling. Eva Stratt, a formidable coordinator, had previously conscripted talent, including Grace, to confront the crisis. Near Tau Ceti, Grace encounters Rocky, whose species faces a parallel threat. The two collaborate via a machine translation system. They discover on Tau Ceti E, which they nickname Adrian, an organism preying on astrophage. Grace cultivates the predator, Taumiba. Ethical tension peaks when Taumiba evolves in transit, potentially compromising Rocky's xenonite-based systems, and Grace must choose between returning to Earth or saving his friend and Erid. His decision, and the ensuing transmissions back to Earth, frame the film's themes of sacrifice, cooperation, and scientific ingenuity. To frame our discussion, 3 questions. First, do practical effects measurably enhance authenticity in a modern space epic? Second, counterfactually, what would extensive green screen and full CG performance have changed? Third, how should we balance scientific plausibility with dramatic exigency, especially around fast evolution and speculative materials? Big question 1. Practical effects and authenticity. It's crucial to understand that performance is a coupled system. Actor, environment, and camera form a feedback loop. By eliminating green screen backings on sets, the production supplied parallax-accurate, light interactive surfaces. The eye lines to Rocky's physical presence were stable, and lighting from Fraser's rigs registered on creature surfaces in camera. The result, we can infer, is reduced cognitive load for performers and fewer mismatches to be corrected in post. Additionally, the aspect ratio grammar, taller for present, wider for memory, creates cognitive scaffolding that quietly clarifies narrative time without expository interruption. This, combined with analogized image texture from film out, yields what viewers often mislabel as realism, but is more accurately coherent sensory cues.
I'm curious about the on-set dynamics. Like, does a puppet really change performance quality compared to, a tennis ball on a stick?
In simpler terms, yes. With a multi-puppeteer system, micro-timings, breath, weight shifts, gaze occur at human reaction speeds. Actors entrain to those rhythms, which begets reciprocal authenticity. Mathematically, you could call it a closed-loop control system with lower latency and higher bandwidth than keyframe animation can emulate on set. Later, digital augmentation refines surfaces, but the temporal kernel remains captured from real interaction. Thus, practical work raises the floor of believability before VFX raise the ceiling. Big question 2, counterfactual green screen. Had the production embraced chroma backings and a fully CG alien, flexibility increases, virtual camera moves, last-minute redesigns, planetary environments iterated ad infinitum. However, we would likely observe diminished on-set eyeline fidelity and a higher burden on animation to supply spontaneity. Creature design might trend toward more flamboyant silhouette language or exaggerated micro-expressivity to compensate for reduced tactile presence. Editorial rhythms, too, might skew toward coverage that hides interface seams rather than celebrates presence. Would it be worse? Not necessarily. But the tactile signature, the sense that Rocky displaces air and occludes light in shared space, would be harder to achieve.
That makes me wonder about creature design specifically. If Rocky were purely CG, would the mechanics still feel, heavy and engineered like they do with the puppetry?
To elaborate, the puppet imposes constraints, joint limits, cable lag, actuator noise that inform performance. Those limitations read as physics. A full CG asset can of course simulate inertia and compliance, but teams then must invent imperfection. By starting with a physical system orchestrated by the Rocketeers, imperfection is gratis. Ultimately, we might have traded certain design flourishes for embodied credibility. Lord and Miller appear to have optimized for the latter, then allowed top-tier vendors to refine, not reinvent. Big question 3, scientific accuracy versus storytelling. Consider two debated elements. First, Talmiba's rapid evolution enabling traversal of xenonite containment. Second, the properties of astrophage as an EM-opaque, Venus-breeding, solar energy harvesting cell. Scientifically, these constructs reside on the speculative frontier. The narrative compresses timescales and abstracts biochemical complexity to maintain propulsion of plot and theme. The tension is classic: fidelity to known mechanisms versus legibility and stakes. Drew Goddard's adaptation heritage suggests a preference for problem-solving logic chains, even when initial premises are fictional. Thus, the film often behaves scientifically once you accept its axioms.
If I may suggest a rule of thumb, is it fair to say, we forgive speculative starting points if the story then respects cause and effect and shows the cost of decisions?
Arguably, yes. Verisimilitude emerges when characters reason transparently, test hypotheses, and confront trade-offs. Here, the ethical trade-off is acute. Grace prioritizes saving Rocky's civilization, transmitting data and Talmiba cultures home by probe rather than returning himself. Some viewers dispute that choice is calculus. Nonetheless, it coheres with the film's thesis that cooperation across profound difference is both rational and humane. The scientific liberties are calibrated to clarify, not obfuscate, that thesis.
Building on that, the aspect ratio shifts felt like science communication in visual form. Like, here is the present experiment, tall and immediate. Here is the prior data, wide and reflective. I liked that.
Indeed, it is a rare case where exhibition format is not mere spectacle, but an explanatory variable. And audiences rewarded it. The Cinema Score A suggests that rigor and accessibility can in fact be friends. Also noteworthy, the split distribution, Amazon MGM Studios domestically, Sony internationally, leveraged regional strengths, while the Lego Icons Hail Mary set extended the text into participatory culture, which, pedagogically speaking, is never a bad outcome. Before we close, a personal note. As a mathematician who plays chess poorly but enthusiastically, I admire narratives where constraints are not curses but catalysts. The film's no green screen policy, the rotated anamorphic lenses, the analog film out, even the puppet cables, all constraints that paradoxically widen the imaginative space. We might call that an elegant solution.
Maybe the best place to end is with a pointer. If listeners enjoyed this blend of science and cinema, The Martian from 2015 offers a useful comparison set, right?
To summarize, Project Hail Mary is a large-scale but intimate science fiction film about survival, sacrifice, and an improbable friendship realized through practical craft and disciplined visual grammar. We examined whether practical effects amplify authenticity, what a green screen alternative might have traded, and how to balance plausibility with drama. This then completes our present analysis. Thank you for listening, and as always, continue your own inquiries.
That was helpful to think through, actually. Thank you, Professor.